Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Pemko number S77. This is a self-adhesive piece of weather stripping that is used very commonly to comply with fire and smoke gasketing requirements. The S77 is a single thin type of product that looks like this. I've got a piece of it, part of it sticking out of its packaging. That's what it looks like. Let's pull out a bit more of it. We are looking at this in the D finish, which is what they call a dark brown. It's awfully dark. Where this piece of equipment I see most commonly sold and installed is in meeting style requirements. A client will have, you can certainly use it on the perimeter, the jambs and the header, but while there's lots of products that also get installed in the jambs and the header, not all of those same products will work well with a meeting style. Whether it be a door and a mullion and then a door, or a meeting style pair of doors. And the reason that's nice is because, well, it's already at an angle, so when the door comes to close, there's not a lot of obstacle to get that to fold over and close nicely. And the advantage is it'll give you lots of surface area. It's going to completely seal that. This is made with a self-adhesive backer and is available in not only different colors, but obviously different lengths as well. Now, let's start with a methodical approach to the product. This is indeed what it looks like. It will come in a package like this. In smaller lengths, it certainly will. The installation instructions are part of the card of the packaging, which is back here. And then there's also at least one other piece of equipment inside of here. Yeah, two pieces. That's what I was looking for. Maybe, let's see, where'd it go? Yep, okay. So, let's start with a methodical approach. The S77 series is this T-shaped self-adhesive back. This is available in C for a charcoal finish, which would be quite dark. And I continue to think that this color is a bit dark and closer to charcoal, but I've checked other images that I have on other D finish, and while it is indeed quite dark, under the right light it does reflect very, very dark brown. Under the right light, the camera's really not cooperating very much. We have it listed in the site in a, obviously in a D for dark brown finish. They also list it in C for clear and then W for white. But I think we also have it listed in BL for black. Indeed we do. So 4 finishes: clear, brown, black, and white. This item is available in different lengths. This can be done in 17 foot, 18 foot, 20 foot, 21 foot, 25 foot, and I'm pretty sure they can do it in longer lengths as well. Indeed, you can do a 510 foot roll in addition to the smaller rolls. Why would you order 17 foot or 21 foot? The math is simple. What's the height of the door? Your jamb length here, your jamb length here, plus your header. So a 3070 is 70 plus 70 plus 30 is 17. If you've got a pair of 6080s, you know you're dealing with 22 feet. So there you go. 8080 is obviously going to be, bigger than 30 feet. However, I would probably just look to arrange to purchase that in a couple of a couple of 17-foot rolls. You'll have some left over. Actually, though, a couple of 17-foot rolls for an 8080 pair would give you enough to run a strip down the center as well, your meeting style. Now, looking at or continuing through the extended description, we've talked about the colors and the sizes available. There is an image down below that shows us the dimensional properties of the item. They say it's 1/2 inch wide, ever so slightly short on that. Has a projection of 5/16. Yeah, I'd say that would be accurate as well. This is self-adhesive. You peel that paper tape back and away. They don't tell us the brand of adhesive that's here, but it's quite durable and strong. I mean, it's not even coming off my finger. The point of the matter is, the adhesive is quite strong and powerful, but the surface has to be prepared, and we'll get into that when we talk about the installation instructions. This is silicone material. And silicone's hallmark is that it remains flexible at extreme temperatures. I would use silicone in very hot environments, like the rooftop doors of a power generating plant in the southern part of the United States. Silicone is really great because it doesn't fatigue over time like other material will, certainly vinyl, with those extreme temperatures. Being silicone, it's unaffected by sunlight, which is UV really, and ozone. It is self-extinguishing and non-toxic. This seal begins compressing at 5/16 and will allow you to get that closed down to something as small as a 1/16 of an inch. And that's another hallmark of this. So stands proud at 5/16, which will cover any gap that you would have on a fire-rated door. If you have a gap that's more than 1/8 of an inch, you don't have a fire-rated door, depending on the composition of the door. So it'll cover those gaps, and it will compress down quite tight if you have a tighter than average gap as well. Impervious to fungus and mildew and will not deteriorate under normal exposure. The downside of this material being an adhesive-based product is that it does have a finite shelf life. We don't stock a lot of it because we can't have it sit on the shelf for very long. More than 6 months is what they recommend. Use it within 6 months. Otherwise, you don't have a product that's necessarily going to be successful in terms of a long-term installation. Next part of the extended description talks about installation. And let's move on to the installation. And all of that paperwork, again, is buried down in here. So when you rip all this out of the packaging, you'll have installation instructions. They are linked to, there's a link to the installations down below this video that will allow you to review that before installation, before purchase, etc. Now, let's take a look at that document now that we've got it pulled up. Okay, so a multi-page arrangement. The first thing I would do is take a look at page 3. It shows you where to place the item in relationship to the location. Where are you installing the material and how are you installing it? It's going to always, in this case for this item, and it's not the same for all items, is that it shows it installed on the rabbet of the frame regardless of where you place it. An alternative location is shown underneath the header. Alternative position for hinge, jam, strike jam, and header. Door must be able to operate properly. You can also apply it to the face of the stop. I would probably avoid that location in all instances because your stop projection is 5/8 of an inch. This material, well, it was just shy on 1/2 inch, but it would, you'll need to position this incredibly close to the inside corner between the rabbet and the stop face so that you aren't overlapping into the opening itself, projecting past the soffit or the stop itself. The stop, not the soffit. You've got the advantage of getting it placed there. If you can get it put in quite, exactly close, it would be a very petite installation that would work very well. However, you do have to, and you would, but you have to make sure that you've got the margin to accept installing something that is going to reside between the stop face and the face of the door. That dimension is quite defined by the manufacturing of the frame and the location of the hinges, which determine the inset of the material, the inset of the door in the frame. So if your stop projection in hollow metal would be 5/8, you might want to ensure that you could get it placed there without any trouble before you go about installing it. I would likely install it in the traditional location so that the door basically compresses it closed rather than having to have the entire surface area of material needing to be folded back to get the door to close itself. I would probably rather have it installed in the standard recommended location, which is in the rabbet. The fin is going to cant back to the face of the stop, so be mindful to install it in that way. Now, let's go to page 1 of the installation instructions. That's an overview of the material. They give you an idea of what it's supposed to look like. This gasketing material is rated for fire doors intended for listed doors and frames, classified steel-covered composite type, and hollow metal doors rated up to 3 hours. Wood and plastic composite type fire doors up to 90 minutes. Wood core doors up to 20 minutes as well. This is also smoke rated, so that you can use it on those applications that require gasketing for smoke control, okay, which is different than fire rating. Smoke control is its own segment of requirements, and this material is compliant with that. About this gasketing, it is adhesive backed, high temperature silicone, self-extinguishing and non-toxic, long-lasting, commercial grade, seals against smoke, fire, air, sound, and weather, and it will be certainly effective at sound attenuation to a certain degree. It's better than having nothing there, certainly. Unaffected by sunlight, ozone, and ultraviolet. Impervious to fungus and mildew. Excellent compression. Door latches easily. That takes us to page 2 now in terms of the installation. They talk immediately about the shelf life. So be mindful. Don't order more than you need. Use it all within 6 months. Store it at a standard room temperature application. I've installed this material before, and I've installed it in installations where it was required. I've installed it in places where I just simply wanted to have additional material gasketing added to the opening so as to help attenuate the transmission of particulate through the door. If you've got a shop to a showroom application, you open up that door, you look at the jamb, you're going to see particulate collect there, dust, debris, all kinds of material that you really want to stop dead in its tracks. You don't want that shop particulate to come up into the showroom and cover everything that you've got happening there. So I learned the hard way the first time. A couple of things. Make sure the frame is clean and don't stretch the material. Before installing, thoroughly clean the frame with the enclosed cleansing towelette to remove grease, dust, or cleanser buildup. Before installation, wait for the frame surface to completely dry, evaporate. Some hospital environments have wax or antibacterial cleanser buildup. As an alternative or substitute cleanser, use isopropyl rubbing alcohol. Mineral spirits and other petroleum-based cleaning products should not be used. So the moral of that story is the frame needs to be utterly clean. If it's been recently painted, the paint has to be cured for at least a week. If it's been stained, clear-coated, utterly cured, at least a week. In that environment, scuff that up with some fine grade material, a Scotch-Brite sort of pad to give some surface area. Again, completely clean. It is so important that it's clean that they include that isopropyl pad. Okay, it's that important. They actually include it. What I learned the first time I did it, I thought the frame was clean. I could run my finger down on it and really not see anything at all. It was clean. The installation failed. I realized, why did that happen? Because I put a lot of pressure as I was installing it for a very healthy duration of time. And went back and said, well, the frame must not have been clean enough. And sure enough, it wasn't. So when you think it's clean, go back and do it again. Make sure it's utterly clean. Now, install the material between 50 and 100 degree. If you're obviously doing door work, smoke doors, you're going to have HVAC control if you've already got the doors hung. Hopefully. I've been on job sites where they were swinging doors and they didn't have the roof on. That's not when you would want to install this material, most likely. Installation should take place after construction is completed, flooring is done, final cleaning is completed. Paint on the frame must be cured 5 to 7 days, or it cannot be wet underneath the surface when gaskets are pressed on. Avoid quick-drying primers, which will leave a powdery surface preventing sufficient adhesion. That's what our problem was. The frame needs to be free of that particulate. When applying to the wood frame, the surface must be non-porous and sealed. Industry standard guidelines on sealed wood frames and or rough surface before applying. Antibacterial, fungal, silicone additives, and paint may inhibit adhesion. So knowing what you're finishing the product with is important based on what you're going to be applying to that finished product. The other lesson I learned is do not stretch the material. Product can retract or shrink if stretched. It will. The page 1 shows, several inches of the paper removed as you're placing it onto the frame. I think what the tendency is, or was for me the first time, was I want it straight. So the tendency is to stretch the material. You'll find that it's going to resume its natural elasticity and pull that adhesive off. I learned to work with a shorter amount, and with practice you'll get it on straight. Or concern, really. And lend lots of pressure as you place it and push it down. The key to knowing that you've not stretched it is to measure and pre-cut the pieces. If you've got any left over and you've measured correctly and cut it correctly, then you've stretched it. Immediately pull it off and reapply it. Don't stretch the material. Under application tips and warnings, product can retract or shrink if stretched. Use very firm perpendicular pressure when applying. Use wallpaper seam roller to reinforce adhesion after applying. My only concern with that is unintentionally stretching the material. So I would make sure that I was firmly applied so that the adhesive would help prevent any stretching using a wallpaper seam roller. I would just avoid I personally would not use it, and I would just use my hands to do it. Don't stretch the material, they say, using the seam roller, and go up and down. Double check adhesion after 2 or 3 hours before leaving job overnight. What I would do in that case is I would apply the material, close the door, indicate on the door that it's not to be opened, and I would then let it set, and I would check it 2 or 3 hours later. If the gasket separates from the frame, press again with firm pressure in place, and if the adhesive strip is exposed, airborne dust is going to get on here, impede adhesion. Replacement at that point may be necessary. Application at the header can be awkward due to the overhead condition. Because it's being applied to the rabbet, it's not so bad. You can just push up, I suppose. And adhesion takes delayed set. Immediate removal and resetting can be done if errors occur in the initial placement. Do not reset after an hour. So if you notice there's a problem, handle it immediately. Lots of pressure. Get the material applied. It does take 24 hours for a full set of adhesion to occur. Installation instructions. Pre-cut those pieces before installing. If you've got a 3070, don't cut them at 36 by 84. Measure the opening that you're going to need. Decide in the header and the jamb what's going to run long and what's going to butt up to the end of it. So decide how you're going to handle it. Or maybe you're going to try to put a little miter cut onto it. Just be mindful of that. I would not let it run long and then trim it at the bottom. I'd cut those pieces. That will help you know if you've stretched the material. Do not install as a continuous piece because those inside corners, this is not going to fold very well in inside corners. I've actually seen that. That's going to fail immediately. Remove approximately 24 inch of backing with the adhesive from the back of the adhesive and gasketing. I like to work with a shorter length because I'd find those longer lengths you'd have to stretch it to get it straight. A little shorter lengths is what I like. Be careful not to touch the adhesive or drag the adhesive on the ground. Remove remainder of backing as gasket is applied to the frame, so you're peeling the paper away as you're applying it. Install jam pieces by positioning the gasket on the door frame rabbet as illustrated. Start by applying gasket 1/16 of an inch from the header rabbet to allow the header piece clearance. Do not stretch the material. Use fingertips to apply pressure while installing the S77 along the jam rabbet. And then back to page 3 where we started. This material, again, you're going to use it when you have smoke or fire gasketing, smoke and or fire gasketing requirements. I also find that it's really good material to use in that prior example, showroom to shop. Help retard the transmission of particulate through the space. And it's inexpensive to install. It's easy to install. You can use it in lots of places. It does include the decal that will be something that you can install onto the opening so as to attest to the compliance of the product for the application that you are applying it for. You know, obviously this is going to go on the rabbet, so you're going to need to be mindful of where running your weather stripping over your label would not be what you'd want to do. The issue with the hinge side, of course, is going to be the fact that you may not be able to fit it onto your opening. You're not, you know, you're going to have to be mindful that you've got hinges there, and where to place it is going to come into play. The width of this decal is, you know, I'm really not sure what they have in mind. Oh, well, you know, the truth of the matter is, a 2 1/4 inch width, or basically 2 1/8 inch width. It's going to be larger than your rabbet naturally. The decal itself is basically, you know, when you peel that off, it's basically just 2 inch or just sub 2 inch. So an inch and 15/16 rabbet. This will need to be placed quite firmly into the rabbet so it doesn't hang out at all. So be mindful of where you're going to actually place the material. Okay. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the this isn't a lock, all the Pemko products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the Pemko S77D, fin style adhesive gasketing, silicone, or any other Pemko product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.